Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 367 and you want to subscribe right now and ensure you never miss a journey. The entrepreneurs that join me each week reveal the steps they took on their journey to success, and these steps reveal a path you can take as well. Today we have Fernando Campos, the co-founder of Marketplace Ops and specializes in scaling CPG brands on Amazon. Marketplace Ops leverages full integrated technology and marketing techniques to beat your competition with repeatable strategies. Hello, Fernando.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming. My audience are excited to hear your story. Just start by telling us one thing we are going to learn from you today that will help us on our journey to success.
I hope to share a little bit more about our journey and, kind of what it looks like to be successful selling on Amazon.
Wow, I can't wait to hear more about that. Let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my audience a little bit about your background, what you did before you started your business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I came from tech startups before. So I started my career in finance. Personally, I hated it. I thought it was boring, and I realized kind of looking at into the future that I'd be, working there for 20 years and you wouldn't have a great quality of life. And so pretty immediately, I kind of started looking to move out of the field. And as I kind of started talking to one of my best friends, who's now my business partner, Nick, we kind of both looked at technology startups as an amazing place to grow and learn how to build companies. And so I kind of was in the tech startup space for about 3 or 4 years. And then, eventually my business partner and I came back together, and we were like, okay, we've learned a lot about how to build businesses, how to build teams. I think, it makes sense to maybe try to do it for ourselves. And so we both quit. We didn't have a fully fleshed out idea, but we both knew that our jobs were pretty intense at the time. And so it would be hard to kind of do a typical side hustle. And so we started researching spaces. And, if you're coming from tech startups, naturally you think of a tech company, but we knew that neither of us were engineers and it would be challenging. And so we had seen some friends do well in e-commerce. And so we started kind of researching this space there. And we kind of messed around with business ideas for probably about 4 or 5 months. And then we were actually, funny enough, we were actually going to start buying and reselling items from China to resell on eBay. And then one day we receive a package at my business partner's apartment. It's from Amazon because we ordered everything from Amazon at the time. And then we started really thinking wait, why are we going to sell on eBay if we're constantly shopping on Amazon? And that was kind of the light bulb moment back in 2014. But it wasn't as commonly known at the time that you could even sell on Amazon. Most people would just assume that everything, there was no third party sellers. And so we kind of dropped everything, started researching about how do you actually sell on Amazon. We found a course, we took the course, and then that basically kickstarted our journey. And yes, since then we've sold about 200 million on the platform, across brands that we've owned and then for clients as well.
What a background, Fernando. But why do you do what you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, at this point, we've sold, a few different companies. We've done well, but I think it's really fun to work with entrepreneurs and help them scale their brands. And so, Marketplace Ops, we work with a lot of direct to consumer companies, consumer brand companies. And, usually they're kind of in the earlier stages, maybe doing let's say 1 or 2 million a year. And then we're able to help them scale to much larger. And then if they decide to, then they're able to kind of have a life-changing event, able to sell their business. And it's just cool to see and be able to help people achieve their goals. And so, yeah, it's very rewarding.
Let's put man aside. How do you know you are successful?
Oh, how do I know I am successful? It's a good question. I would say there's a few metrics that I kind of pay attention to. I think about our clients and whether they're happy. One way is looking at, like an NPS score, like the Net Promoter Score. But I think even like simpler than that is like, are they referring their friends? And like what percentage of clients are referring? Because if they're referring, obviously that means we're doing our job and that they're happy with the service. I would say the second piece, and this kind of transitioned over time, I would say is just like the happiness of our employees. And again, you can measure that through like an NPS, or like, voluntary attrition, things like that. But I think, actually, I was actually just having dinner with two of our employees that immigrated to Calgary on Monday. And, what was interesting for me was just kind of hearing the stories. One immigrated from Pakistan, one immigrated from the Philippines. But then, because our company is actually remote first, so everybody's remote worldwide. But I think providing like a great great employee experience, and then allowing them to move to countries where they see like more opportunity. I think that becomes like kind of your new purpose or a new way of finding success, because you're just creating, like stability, obviously in terms of employment, but just so much opportunity for them and their families. And yeah, I think that to me is now success.
Tell us how you scaled it to over $150 million on Amazon.
Oh yeah, and sorry, I should update. We actually just hit 200 like last week, so yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think, obviously we're experts in the platform. We've been selling since 2014, so about 8 years now. But I think, the first thing is that it always starts with a good product. So when we're looking at prospective clients, we're really focusing on the ones that we can actually help, versus I think, a lot of agency owners have the tendency of just taking anybody on because they want the fees. But, I think it's kind of like a short-term way of thinking about it. It ends up being that if you're not really able to help the client, then they're going to end up, kind of frustrated, and you'll spend a lot of energy on them, and then they'll eventually leave. And so we've really focused on categories where the business has traction, and so we can kind of be that fuel to the fire, if you will, to really help them scale. And so I think that's like a really big piece. I think it's like the quality of your team. We have a phenomenal leadership team. The team like really understands Amazon and like what it takes to grow on the platform. I think that's like a huge, huge component. And then I think the third thing is that we spend a lot of time testing, like every little thing, from like a little like symbol that might be in the corner of your main image, but to see how that performs with or not having it. And because, yeah, we're constantly making little adjustments, but then over time that really compounds and just can really like transform a product on the platform. Like we have some clients that have like 3 or 4x over like 2 years. And starting from big numbers, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's all about a matter of just like constantly improving things and optimizing, and then and just getting better every day.
Tell my audience about the magic moment, the day it suddenly all went right for you.
Oh man, that's yeah. I prepared for this question, and it's a great question. I think for us, it was when we first started selling on Amazon as a platform. Prior to that, like I mentioned, we were testing different business ideas. We were kind of messing around with Shopify for 4 or 5 months. And I think at the time we had done maybe like 10,000 revenue, which we were happy about, but we realized that it wasn't going to be enough. And then we had that moment where we decided to shift to Amazon. We watched the course. And then the real magic moment was when our products went live. And then the products go live, and it starts selling way more. We're like hundreds of dollars of revenue a day, which for us was like a ton. Uh, and and then I remember looking at the first 30 days of sales, and we had done more than like the last 5 months on Shopify combined. And I think that was like just like crazy moment where it's okay, we gave this other business up, but obviously we made the right decision. And even though those products didn't do well, it kind of proved the model. And I think, when you're kind of first starting out a business, especially if you're a first time entrepreneur, I think you kind of always in the back of your mind are like, is this going to really work? Like, is this going to fail? And so I think having that like testimony of sales was really helpful in terms of like kind of pushing that like fear mindset like out of us and being like, hey, this is legitimate, like, and you can actually like make a living doing this.
Tell my audience how to build a high performance remote team of 75 full-time people. Wow. Is that how you started?
Oh, definitely not how I started. Yeah, it took a long. Yeah, I wish I could afford 75 people at the time. Yeah, I mean, it definitely happens, over time. I think for us, there's a few things that have really helped us. So, my business partner and I are in LA, but we have people all over the world, from Eastern Europe to the Philippines, Pakistan, India, you name it. And I think what has really helped us in terms of developing like a high performance team and culture, I think first is like OKRs, objective key results. And so that's kind of like think of it as like a 90-day sprint where you set like a target, and then based on the target, you have a few different metrics that kind of ensures that you're going to hit the target, but and then also it makes it very black or white whether you guys achieve the goal or not at the end of the quarter. And I think that as you scale is extremely helpful in terms of prioritizing the right things. Because I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is like what kills companies isn't ideas, it's like good ideas. It's too many good ideas and not really learning how to prioritize onto like the best core ideas. Because obviously if you're doing all these good ideas, you're moving slower and kind of spreading your resources versus like really going after like the most important things. So I think that's like a huge piece. Both my business partner and I are really into like business coaching. We've worked with a few different kind of CEO coaches. I think that helps a lot, especially for first time entrepreneurs. Whether it's like around delegation, whether it's around like communication, whether it's like kind of, we talk about like missing conversations between business partners all the time or between teams. I think, a CEO coach is really helpful because they're almost like a therapist in a sense, but have seen so many different businesses, and then they're able to kind of work with you or even work with your leadership team in terms of kind of finding those gaps that you might not even be aware of. And then I think, kind of touching more on the international side. I would say obviously you could hire, cheaper in other countries relative to like the US or, the UK where you are. But I think it's just having a really high expectation of the colleagues that you bring on as if they were, there locally. And so I think in the beginning we're, just really excited to hire people like at a lower rate. And so we had kind of less expectations of them. It's just like, okay, well, they're just going to be helping like with support. And so like, it doesn't really matter. But over time, we've just raised like that bar of like hiring over and over and over again. And now we have people that are way more talented than me in their area of, focus. And I think that's like kind of the company that you want to work in. I think, we borrowed this inspiration from Netflix, but like they changed like the idea of building a company like a family. Cause a family is great, but there's kind of this unconditional love, right? You can't fire a family member. And so what Netflix said was like, we're more like a professional sports team. We expect you to like work out, to sleep right, to continuously get better, to like deliver results. And so we use that now. And so we're very clear with everybody on the team, like, hey, like we're not a family, we're a professional sports team. That doesn't mean that we don't care about the people on the team, but that is like the expectation to be here. And I think that was really transformative for us in terms of just like it's a slight change in language, but I think it's just very clear from the day that you join, like, hey, I'm an A player and I want to work with other A players. And this is like a company full of A players. And I think that, like, I think those points like have really helped us.
Thank you for sharing. What have you learned from business as a whole?
Oh man. I think, so much. I think it's important to clarify roles. EOS talks about like an accountability chart. I think that is really important just so there's clarity and it gives people the space to get better at things. Like my business partner, we had like, pretty similar backgrounds going into the business. And over time we've gravitated towards specific roles, but I think that's huge. I think, if you're in the physical products world, having a great product with high margins is huge. And it's like the most important thing. I think in the past you were able to sell kind of like, we call it like a Me Too or more of a commoditized product on Amazon. But at this point, that just doesn't work. And I would just say like delegate. I think that's probably one of the most common mistakes that I see, entrepreneurs do is they kind of hold on to too much for too long. And then that ends up being like a big stifling part of growth.
Isn't Amazon overcrowded? Is there any space for anyone who wants to go on Amazon space?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely a lot more crowded today than it was like 5 years ago. I think it's still very possible, but I think you need a bigger budget to start. And I think you have to be really clear on kind of what you're looking to sell, and maybe having a specific like demographic. For instance, I don't know, maybe you're really into like rock climbing, for instance, and so you're really familiar with the product and the category and who rock climbs and stuff like that. And so you can kind of create products potentially for that category. I think that makes sense. Or, maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and then you really understand like the challenges of maintaining the household while raising the kids and like the products that person specifically needs. And so I think it's still very, very possible. But it is a challenging space today relative to a few years ago. Just advertising cost is more expensive. It's more competitive. More people are aware of it. And fees have gone up a little bit on the Amazon side. But I do still think it's an amazing place to build a business. I think it's much easier than like going direct to consumer and selling on Shopify. And on top of that, they make it really easy in terms of other areas. Like they ship the product to the customer. They handle a lot of the customer support, and they have hundreds of millions of Prime members, which makes it an amazing place. I still think there's a ton of opportunity on Amazon for sure.
What is the most dangerous belief an entrepreneur can have?
Oh, that is a good question. Probably that no one can do it better than me. I think that kind of going back to the delegation comment, I think, I think the way that I think about it, and, this kind of analogy kind of changes over time, but, when we first started, I kind of valued my time at like, let's say $150 an hour. And so if I can hire a support person for less than $150 an hour or a graphic designer or anything else, then to me, it makes sense to delegate that to somebody else or find a freelancer to do that work. They're going to do a better job. They're going to do it faster. And then that allows me to focus on like the big things. And I'm always really big on like delegation. And so, but then, that hourly rate maybe changes as you get bigger to like $300, $500 an hour. And so I've always kind of maintained that thinking of like, okay, like, do I really want to spend time on this or can I delegate this out? to someone at a better rate, and then they're going to do a better job. They're going to and it kind of doesn't take out the energy from me. Cause like, for instance, if I'm spending a ton of time on a contract, like reading an agreement, like I think it really takes out like a lot of, I have to like prepare mentally. I have to like bring a cup of coffee. I have to kind of go for a walk before and after. I hate reading contracts for me personally. And so just having like a great attorney that I trust that cares about our business is just so helpful. And then like he can, pull out like the really important points that we can review, but then I don't have to read this like 30-page document. And I think that for me is like a dangerous belief would be like just trying to do it all yourself.
Tell us the new cutting edge strategies to scale on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have in-house technology that helps us a lot, and that's a huge part of our strategy. But I think just generally, like, for anybody that's selling on Amazon, I think the first piece, like I mentioned earlier, differentiating a product. So making sure that your product is different than everything else out there, ideally. And it doesn't have to be a huge radical change, but if everyone's selling whatever, like a black iPhone cable, maybe you sell like a white one or a red one or whatever, but just making sure that it's a little bit different, or maybe you're the first one to come in with a 2-pack because everyone else is only selling one at a time. And then the next piece is I would really spend a lot of time on your main image. Again, like we kind of talked about that, but you're optimizing for what's called click-through rate, which is the percentage of people that click from the search results. And I think that's huge. So you're basically just really trying to figure out what are the important things that you want to feature in that main image, especially for like a mobile, for someone searching on mobile, since things are moving generally more towards mobile, and making sure that main image is optimized to drive the highest click-through rate possible. And then the other piece is like, you start low with your price, specifically to drive higher conversion rate. It's a huge part in terms of ranking your product, and you're trying to get those early reviews. And so that means if you have like an email list or a following or any way you're trying to get, depending on the category, so maybe let's call it like 20, 25 reviews. And that kind of creates a lot of social proof and kind of sets the product off like into the right direction, ideally. And then you're going to want to really focus on like 3 to 5 highly, highly relevant keywords for your product. And so, for instance, we sell in supplements a lot. And so, which is pretty much the most competitive category on Amazon. And so, one way of like going after it is like, let's say you're selling like vitamin C capsules, for instance. It's a very competitive category, but so I wouldn't do it, just to be clear. But let's say you were going to go after those like kind of vitamin C capsules. So one way of targeting would be like, okay, I'm going to go after immunity supplement, but that is such a broad term, because like if you're thinking an immunity category, you could be doing zinc, you could be doing elderberry, you could be doing vitamin C, and it could be a liquid, a capsule. So it's not really specific. And so I would be really, really trying to go after the keywords that are hyper relevant. So like, vitamin C capsules instead, because that is exactly what they're looking for, or vitamin C tablets, vitamin C liquid, whatever that specific one is. I would be really going after those keywords, because the more relevant you are, the more likely you're to get those conversions. And then that is really what's crucial on Amazon within that first like 60 to 90 day window. They call it the honeymoon period.
If you could rerun the first year of your business, what would you definitely not do?
Oh, that's a great question. I would probably move faster. If I knew everything that I knew today, I mean, back, when we started selling on 2014, it was like the wild, wild west in Amazon. You were able to like buy reviews. There was a lot less rules, a lot less competitive. And so truthfully, if I could go back, I would probably raise capital, like probably some debt onto the business, go into a much more competitive category like supplements. And it's great as a product line because it's consumable, so people will reorder, versus like, let's say you buy a frying pan. You're not buying a frying pan every month or every other month. And so I would be going into a really competitive category with consumables like supplements and then building a one very, very strong brand. I think a lot of people in the Amazon space have the kind of shiny object syndrome. And so they kind of launch some products in home and kitchen, then they do sports and outdoors, and then they try beauty. And so they're kind of a little bit all over the place. And I think what I've seen the companies that do the best is where things compound. And so if you focus on supplements and you really like, kind of going back maybe to the mom analogies, like you create a brand specifically for moms and, maybe you tie in the family and the kids somehow, but it's like, all around like that, like the products that a mom would want to use or purchase, then like that's going to compound because moms will tell other moms they're going to be reordering frequently because their kids are also taking it, maybe the husband or the partner. And I think that is what I would do if I were to start all over again.
What is one thing that has contributed to your success?
Yeah, I think having a business partner is huge. Nick is one of my best friends. Him and I have similar personalities, but we approach problems very differently. And so I think he's usually a little bit more conservative. I'm usually a little bit more aggressive, maybe a lot more aggressive. But I think that really helps in terms of kind of having a different way of thinking. And so naturally, if I'm kind of proposing like a more aggressive strategy, and then he has like a tendency to be a little bit more conservative, then it kind of helps us balance out, right? Where we find some kind of compromise in the middle. And yeah, I think he'll force me to like spend more time thinking about it even before we talk, because like I want to make sure that like I've kind of thought it through before I bring it up to him, because I know like just tendency wise he might be a little resistant to it. But I think he'll bring up great questions, and potentially, and sometimes I'll be like, hey, like, I don't think this is a great idea, and here's why. And I think versus doing it in a vacuum by myself, I wouldn't have prepared as much and I wouldn't have been as thoughtful. And then for sure, after having a discussion, the two of us, it definitely helps us come up with the best decision that we possibly can.
What grounds you?
Oh, my wife, Esther. I think she's great. I think she helps me in so many different ways, but just kind of realizing that, we have enough, that like everything is great. I was very competitive, naturally wanting to grow the business further. But I think, she'll make me go on walks and not bring my cell phone with me, which I think is really helpful and just allows me to be more present. And so, I'm very, very thankful for her.
Let's talk about your business. Tell us more about it and how we can connect with you.
Yeah, of course. Marketplace Ops, we're a full service agency for brands selling on Amazon. Actually, we're really excited to announce, on November 1st, or in like 2 weeks or so, we're going to be launching a few standalone services, or like kind of a la carte. So we're launching advertising only and supply chain only. But yeah, basically, if you think about it, if you're wanting to sell on Amazon, our team can handle everything from creating the strategy, launching the products, advertising the products, making sure you're staying in stock, that you're getting refunds, your customer support, inventory forecast, you name it. We're pretty much taking care of everything. And so, that's basically what we do. And then, in terms of getting in touch, our website is marketplaceops.com, or you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, at Fernando Campos, and I'm happy to help out any way that I can.
Thank you. There will be more from Fernando in a moment. If you are listening to this on a podcasting platform and you're encouraged by Fernando's journey, please go to our website at onlinesuccessjourney.com. In addition to the amazing free content, you can work direct with me. Check out my course, Success: How to Set Goals and Double Your Productivity, a course for achieving success in work and life. when you visit onlinesuccessjourney.com. The site has a ton of audio clips from hundreds of successful entrepreneur guests' journeys, all there to help you find the path to your own online success journey. Check it out. That's onlinesuccessjourney.com. Fernando, I would love for you to share more with my audience if you're up for it.
Yeah, of course, sometime.
Thank you. Do you watch movies or read books?
Oh, that's a good question. I watch a lot of TV, but I also listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts. So I would say it's pretty split, 50-50.
Okay, I'm going to go for books.
Sure.
Tell us, what is your favorite book that has some relevance to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, great question. For sure, 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Yeah, I read that book back in 2009, so pretty early into like when the book was launched. And I think that book completely changed my life. I think, when I read it, it was right before I actually started my job in finance that I mentioned earlier. And I think that was kind of like, that matrix moment where you realize like, oh, there's another way of living your life, where I think in the past I'd kind of seen, my mom become an entrepreneur, and it's kind of like you work for a company for whatever, 15 years, you build up your career, eventually you know enough to start your own business. And I had never considered like doing it right out of college. Naturally, when you have less like fixed expenses, you have like, and no partner, not as much responsibility. And so less like, you're not spending as much, obviously, when you're right out of college. And so it's a lot easier. You have less to lose at that time. And so, I think the 4-Hour Work Week just was really revolutionary for the time in terms of so many like things that, kind of like lean startup methodology in terms of like testing like a lot of different business ideas through like Google ad copy. And I think he just had so much, so much gold in that book. Yeah. Like hiring overseas was a big part of that book. And so, I think that was almost like a manual or a playbook, if you will, for what ended up becoming our business.
If your business was down to its last $100, how would you invest it?
Oh, wow. Blackjack table? No, I'm just kidding. If it was $100, that is a good question. For us, truthfully, $100 wouldn't do much, but I guess I would make sure to cover like my cell phone bill, I guess you would say, just to be able to like call every potential client that I could think of, to get them to sign on. I think that would be probably the best use of cash, I guess.
If you are going to keep a note to yourself in your pocket every day, what would be written on it?
Yeah, I would write, just be 1% better every day. I think that's like one of our values, and something that I always really aspire to be, is just trying to get better every single day.
What is your next chapter?
It's a good question. For us, it's continuing to work on the agency. We love working with these clients. I think it's really rewarding, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of being able to help other entrepreneurs kind of achieve a lot of their dreams. And so I think right now we're really, really focused on that, getting better as much as we can, and really delivering results for them.
Do you feel like you succeeded, or like you're only on the way?
Oh, that's a great question. Truthfully, I think in terms of how most people would see it, probably, we have succeeded, but I'm very, very like forward looking. And so I think I always have kind of a target that I'm trying to shoot for. And so therefore, like, I don't feel like I've succeeded.
Will you ever stop?
No. Yeah, no way. I talk about this with my wife all the time. I think it's a kind of a curse in a sense, but I love what I do. I love entrepreneurship. And so even if, for some reason we sold or whatever, which, we don't really plan to, then I for sure it would be hard for me to take off a few months and not work on anything.
Remind us how we can connect with you.
Yeah, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. It's Fernando Campos, or you can reach out via email at fernando@marketplacehops.com.
Fernando, it's been great having you to share your online success journey with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Patience. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
You are welcome. Remember, success is a journey. Don't wait. Let's start the journey. Patience and Fernando.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Patience and her guest and want you to know that there are hundreds of episodes available at onlinesuccessjourney.com. Patience would like to thank you for listening to the podcast, and she has a free gift for you on her website, including an audio compilation of her guests' best tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. Additionally, there are special clips of over 250 episodes that have never aired on the podcast and are only available to members of the Online Success Journey. Check the website and click on Join Now to get free and instant access. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps us each chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed on the favorite platform you have to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review the podcast at Apple Podcasts and other sites. We appreciate your help and your willingness to share the journey. One last thing. If you're feeling a bit lost or overwhelmed on your own journey, Patience can help. Check out our coaching sessions on how to set goals and double your productivity while you're at the website. Working with Patience is a great way to get back on the right path. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.